You say that I'm a data nerd or whatever, like, but I literally built the first version of Campless in Excel when Excel was still 60,000 rows.
Hey everybody, this is Howard Lindzon, Social Leverage, StockX. I don't know, I got a lot of things going on, but I'm really thrilled that he's letting me do this from Detroit, from Motor City. I lived in Windsor. People didn't know that, but I lived in Windsor. I called doing time because you smoked a little too much in college, undergrad at Western, so you end up at Windsor. But my friend Josh Luber, who's a transplant to Detroit from Philly and the founder of StockX. He has an incredible product, incredible company, incredible story. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we have 3 minutes. It's like a tweet, and we're out of time. But this is a video show that I do about investing for profit and joy. So thanks, Josh, for being a guest on the show from Detroit.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I actually wasn't sure if this was video or not until you said that at that last moment. I was like, hold on, are we just doing audio here and we're talking on video? But if you want, we can change this to a live tweet interview where we have to just tweet back and forth at each other.
That's very 2010. Now I'm at the point where if people, they've decided if they like to listen to my stuff, then there's thousands of people that do, they can watch. And I'm making this stuff for us. Like, we're trying to get a little bit smarter. I know you're doing this as a favor, but I always get smarter talking to smart people. And your story, I got lucky. Ryan Spoon introduced us. It's amazing how fast people can become friends on the social web. And you spoke at Stocktoberfest, and it's like people were fanatic about StockX in my audience very early. So I use the StockX audience to get smarter. You kind of knew what you were doing. I think the most incredible thing about StockX that I know is you kind of had the Kelly Blue Book of shoes. Like, the way I understood it, you were a geek. Data geek. So tell people like the origin story of StockX.
Yeah. By the way, Ryan introduced us, but the tie that Raman worked for you before that, and Raman didn't introduce us, but your name came up, I forget how, but Raman was my CTO at Campless, which is the company we'll talk about that became StockX and was the first CTO at StockX. The fact that he worked for you way back when, I mean,
and he was in Seattle maybe at the time.
At the time. But that company, which was called Campless, was kind of like the Kelly Blue Book for sneakers. Created the business or started working on it while I was at IBM as a consultant at IBM. Like early 2012 is when we started working on the idea. And, this is at a time when, I still kind of joke about this because, you say that I'm a data nerd or whatever. Like, I had no data skills whatsoever before I went to IBM. I thought I knew something about data, and then I'm a consultant and you get thrown in the deep end and you figure it out. But, I literally built the first version of Campless in Excel when Excel was still 60,000 rows. Like, the level of data tools that even existed at that time were nascent. But there was nobody doing real analytics around sneakers at this time. And the sneaker industry was just starting to become what it is today. We were just having this start of the massive influx of people coming back into the sneaker industry and becoming more of mainstream in all regards. And, there wasn't a good way to understand the value of any particular pair of sneakers. And that was it. I was doing all this data work at IBM. I've collected sneakers since I was 8 years old. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could get hold of some sneaker data just to play with my own amusement, just to kind of see what I could do with it, because I was doing all this data work at IBM. And, because if you're a startup guy and you're at IBM, the first thing you do is you start working on stuff on the side. So that's what was going on, right? I was just looking for side projects.
Watson to work. You didn't all get free access to Watson to do stuff.
How crazy would that have been? And then I would have had to
Watson,
have Watson.
Blue shoe, swoosh, number 52. No.
So my practice group was the internal strategy group. And there was actually a project that probably scooped up half of the people in our practice, and which is about 30 people on the project, that worked on the commercialization of Watson right after it was on Jeopardy. So it was the biggest thing at IBM at the time and in the middle of it. But no, I was as far away from that as possible. So we built a price guide. People started using it, realized that there was something there.
They would go to campless.com and search.
Yep. And it was one step above a PDF. in terms of a
Right,
website.
right,
You went
right.
there. There were some numbers on a website. Ramen built that, and but that was really it. And honestly, even more than the data itself was we had a blog that was kind of like Freakonomics for sneakers, where we were trying to quote tackle these very nuanced questions. We were just trying to have an excuse to write about sneakers and write about data and create something that was more interesting, because anybody could have just put numbers on a website. So trying to show of like why there's actually some thought behind this and where all these numbers came from. And that, I think, is what engaged this kind of very small volunteer army, that people started reaching out to me and saying, hey man, I love sneakers, I love data, can I help? And I was like, sure. I'm doing this on the side at IBM. And over the course of 3 years, we ended up having 17 people that were part of this little volunteer army. There was no money, there was no equity,
They were campers. They were campers.
We never called them campers, but yeah.
Oh, you flock? They weren't the flock?
No, we didn't have any name for
God
them.
bless you. That's why you're cool. You didn't call these kids campers.
No, there were some of these people that I'd never even met in person, and Ramen was one of them. And we built this little thing because we all just like sneakers and data and thought it was a cool thing to build, but there was no business there. Like we didn't, there was no money. And I talked to everybody in the sneaker industry, Nike, eBay, Foot Locker, Complex, Complex, to try to figure out who to work with. And how do I take this little data company and create something with it? And I had this idea that you could create a stock market out of it. But man, I went to all those people, and there was never really a good fit with any of them. And that's fine. Like, they all are running their business. And so I'm here with this idea that I want to build a stock market for sneakers, leveraging this data. And they're like, yeah. That data, though, could be super valuable in our business. And here's how we think we could use it. Fair enough, right? So I didn't think Nike or eBay was going to build a stock market with me. And there's a long story, but the short version is that I end up meeting Dan Gilbert and end up with him. And I had the same one piece of paper that I'd taken all these meetings with Nike and eBay and everyone else.
And you were in Detroit. He flew you to Detroit.
Yeah, he flew me to Cleveland to go to a game and meet him. And we went to the game.
Because his kid liked shoes or something, or his kid was into it?
His kids have been buying and selling sneakers on eBay at the time. And so, they had reached out to me. They said, hey, we saw Campus, we saw what you're doing, we're interested in it. I got on a call with his guys. It was Greg Schwartz and Corey Tincher, and kind of gave my pitch for what I thought you could do at Campus. But that call was the most nondescript call. It was exactly like every other call I'd had at that point. I honestly blocked it out of my mind. The second I had it, I was like, whatever. But they emailed me back 2 days later and like, look, we definitely want to do this business. We definitely want to work with you. We'd like to fly you to Cleveland to go to a game and meet Dan. The first half at same, I was like, whatever. Everybody says they're going to do shit, right? Second half, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You can fly me to a game. No problem, right? I'm a huge NBA fan. I get to go to a game with the owner of the team. Like, that's all I thought was coming out of this, right? Yeah. So I was like, I'm in.
He's going to pick your brain, yada, yada. Yeah.
Whatever. I get to go to a game with a owner of an NBA team. Like, that's been my dream since I was 8. So, I go to the game, and after the game, we go back in this room, and it's Dan and Greg and Corey, and kind of go through all the introductions and me and IBM and all this. But I show them this idea that I had around how, you could basically take Campus and turn it into a stock market. And it's same pitch I'd given to all these other companies. And they kind of just stop and look at me with pure shock. And it doesn't really register to me why, right? And then Greg takes out a piece of paper and he's like, yeah, we have one of those that is exactly what we want to build, a stock market for sneakers. And I was like, oh, okay. So the crazy backstory is that there was maybe one other person in the world that had the exact same idea at the exact same time. And it happens to be, one of the most successful business people in the world. And the reason why, from Dan's standpoint, because Dan's got no ties to sneakers whatsoever, but he had been exposed to sneakers through his kids. And he had always had this idea around a marketplace that operated the way a stock market operated, and then saw sneakers and said, you know what, that's a pretty crappy market leader, eBay, and that'd be a perfect place to start it. So Dan had actually already started what would become StockX. They were calling it something else at the time, but it started a stock market for sneakers that was led by Greg. But those guys got a week, 2 weeks into it and realized, well, crap, we need a sneaker guy, right? Who's a sneaker guy who can help us run the sneaker stock market. So they went out, they did some research, they found Campus, they found me. Turns out the sneaker guy is also trying to build a sneaker stock market, worked for IBM, started other companies, wasn't some random guy. So it was truly this very serendipitous meeting. and led to me selling Campless to Dan and becoming partners with him in turning Campless as the data layer into StockX as the marketplace. And that was summer of 2015, and we launched StockX in 2016. And then, then it was just easy. Build a couple $2 billion business. And
then it was just easy, and there was BLM in New York and stealing $12 million of your inventory. And by the way, if the deal doesn't go well, you could have had him on kidnapping charges, because I mean, you weren't a minor, but you could pass as a minor. So now you're in Detroit. How many companies at StockX?
How many for me?
Yeah, employees were at StockX when you were.
Oh, I was employee number 5. There were 4 people there before me. Dan obviously not running the company day to day, but 4 people. I was a 5th. There was a 6th that started the day after me, and it was basically the 6 of us for a while. We sat right outside of Dan's office so that Dan could come out every day, and maybe we talk about high level stuff. Maybe he'd say, "Why is the font gray?" Right? I mean, it was like Dan was so in the weeds in the beginning of it because he was so excited about it as well.
Uh-huh.
There were 6 of us, and we built the product. We launched it in February of 16. And
when did you know that the market was gonna, what was the moment you knew the stock market people caught on? Because it's not for everybody now. And I knew when it was. I'm walking down New York and I see a woman like on Fifth Avenue. I'm leaning over her shoulder hoping I see StockX. Of course I don't. But it was, or she was Tindering me, which is not going to happen either. And the last thing I would have thought is she's buying fucking shoes on StockX, and I was like, damn. That's cool. That was like 2-3 years ago. So it was pretty fast, right? It took off pretty fast.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The business, the real business is the model, right? Is the stock market model that we've applied to sneakers and other products and created a marketplace that operates like the stock market. So we didn't make that up. Like, the stock market has been the most efficient form of commerce for hundreds of years. And so like that part was pretty solid, right? The question was, could we apply it to sneakers? Could we build a website that functioned like the stock market, but that we didn't have to teach 14-year-old kids how to use the stock market, right? That was the issue. And then also knowing that the stock market works at a level that has essentially infinite liquidity, right? They're never sold out of Nike stock at the New York Stock Exchange. And that liquidity is really what powers a lot of the trades, because then spreads become really small and there's enough supply and demand on both sides. So we always knew that we had to get enough liquidity to get past a certain threshold to even understand whether it would work. So first was like, will people figure out how to use it?
Yeah.
And that was answered super early, because anybody that, first of all, even today, we sell Nike and Adidas and Rolex and Louis Vuitton and Supreme. We don't have to convince anyone to buy any of this stuff, right? We sell the most highly coveted products in the world. And so the fact that there were only at the time a few places to buy Jordans or Yeezys or anything else. So like people were going to figure out how to use it. And then the question was like, what would happen when we really hit liquidity? And so the answer of when we knew, we launched in February of 2016. In September of 2016, there was the first really big release since we launched. And it was an Air Jordan 1. It was the black and red, sort of like OG, like colorway that everyone's familiar with. And Nike was re-releasing it in September of 2016. And at the time, we were doing about 50, 60, 70 trades a day, right? And that day we did 301. And you could see the spread closing real time. You could see trades coming off the board. And by the way, today we do tens of thousands. So like, 300, but like that was the day that we realized, oh, when there's a glut of supply that hits the market at once and creates more liquidity, like the model works better and better. And then we're like, you know what, like this is going to work. I mean, by the way, we never thought it'd be anywhere near what it is today, but at least we're like, yeah, the model is going to work. Like we could see it in the liquidity. And I mean, that day, Greg and I are literally like refreshing the app with the metrics on it, like every, 4 seconds for, for the whole thing. And there's this picture that night, Greg and I had gone out to dinner with our wives and taken our kids to this playground after dinner. And there's this picture of both Greg and I pushing our kids with one hand and looking at the app with the other that like my wife had caught. And like, but that was it, man. It was like, you could see it real time happening. And the stock market's about liquidity.
Yeah, I was going to do a show called Hockey Stick. I mean, obviously, you're kind of like me. You're smarter than me, but you're a product guy and you like getting shit done and you like new things and you like media. I know you've done a bunch of stuff in media and you can't do it all because it's hard. Media is time consuming. Telling stories is time consuming. But the story is amazing. These hockey stick moments, it's a shame because so many entrepreneurs don't really get to enjoy the journey. It's all about, oh, we got to be Zuckerberg. Oh, we got to be, we got to get scale. Oh, we got to please our investors. And it's just sad in a way that we have so much to be grateful for. And the journey kind of gets, you don't have those moments where it's just like you ever enjoy it. Like I'm just starting to enjoy StockX because I'm not running it and it's being run well. And, the original idea still works. And it's like I never enjoyed it until like 10 years later. And so it's just fun to hear people like, you had your moment a lot sooner. I mean, you had the campless stuff and everything else. Yeah. So flash forward today, I see you have the cool. I got to get I don't think my wife will let me do that. You have like a shoe cave. So what do we got? What can you show me?
You want to see the panoramic view?
I want to see the panoramic view because you're cool.
Well, this is the benefit of having run StockX for the last 5 years. So this is my sneaker closet.
That's a closet
room,
and that's in Detroit.
That's in Detroit. It's above my garage, so it's a 2-car garage. That's the size of the room, and it had carpet and drywall. And when we were looking at houses, my wife had a million things that normal people want in a house. Bedrooms.
You're the
and garage
Marcos.
and yard.
You're like the Detroit Marcos.
Yeah. There was one thing I was like, I need a room to build this. And like this house had this like extra room. And I was like, that's it. So
you're an inspiration.
Yeah.
So what size shoe are you? Are we close?
I'm a 10.5.
What? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what they say about guy. I'm like a 7.
A 7?
7 lady. I'm a 7 lady.
7 lady. What are you, like an 8-year-old? Yeah.
I have calluses the size of your feet. So now you are doing something new, but you love trading. So obviously you like, I imagine you like the markets in general.
I mean, I like the consumer markets.
You like the consumer market, but do you buy stocks at all? Or
no.
Okay.
No. And honestly, like part of it is it's just boring, right? Like, it's way more interesting, building StockX and this part of it. Like, yeah, I've never been much of a trader or anything, and it wasn't until about a year ago that I started buying trading cards again, baseball cards, basketball cards again, that I really got active in even managing my own money. And it was just a function of I had to, because I was spending so much money on trading cards and moving money out of real investments into trading cards.
I've been there. So did Bitcoin ever interest you? You went right to cards?
Okay. No, I went to cards, look, I spent the last 5 years, so deep in StockX, that it was my life and it was amazing. I would never have found the next thing if it hadn't been while at StockX, right? And what had happened was, I replaced myself as CEO at StockX last July. And we brought in Scott Cutler, who had been the number 2 guy at eBay and been the CEO of StubHub and had worked at the New York Stock Exchange. So really, and it was an investor in our very first round. So he'd been with us for a while and couldn't have been a more perfect person to take the company to the next level. And so I get to go back and do a lot of the startup within startup stuff, which was way more interesting to me than to be doing, what was going to happen and being the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. And one of those things was running the trading card business. Is we had just added trading cards to StockX. We were always looking for different products that might work on StockX. And, and look, I mean, I'm this like super fortunate position where like, I think I've basically been right about 2 things in my life. And it just so happens that the 2 things I was most interested in as a 10-year-old are the 2 biggest things in culture and commerce, right? Like sneakers in 2012 to 2013 is exactly what's happening with trading cards right now. The same people, the same type, like it's all, and I think trading cards are kind of what's next. And I was deep into it for StockX.
You missed women. You could have had Tinder. Instead, you got smelly shoes on StockX. So
yeah, but women have always been a pretty important part of culture. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
No.
so trading cards with you were, but when you're 10 and then Billy, you know, I was hockey cards because I'm Toronto and it was, you didn't know anything. So it was shootsies and stand-ups and I was doing it for the gum. Because you know Canada's not much to do, so you're a gum collector.
Yeah.
So, so what was the cards that you were collecting as a kid? Because were cards popular?
Cards were huge, right? So I was the exact right age and right demographic where cards had this massive growth in the late 80s, early 90s, which was right when I was in middle school. And like there was nothing that was more important to me for, you know, for those like probably 4 years from like 85 to, you know, from like 86 to 91. There was probably nothing that was more important to me than cards, right? Like, and the card industry blew up and then it blew up. And, you know, it was obviously pre-internet. There was no transparency into how much supply was out there. And so the trading card companies were just making so many cards.
Because they didn't care. They were making their money off selling them for 20 cents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we all thought that we were the only one with 12 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookies, but like we all had 12 Griffey rookies. And so once people realized how much supply was out there, the market crashed. And, you know, for me and for a lot of people of my same, you know, age group, you know, then we go into high school and then at that point you get, you know, more interested in women than cards or sports or trying to, you know, find some beer and drink in the woods or something as a, you know, a high school kid. But, you know, and cards weren't cool and the market had also crashed and you kind of left it behind. So it had been there, but a lot of people kind of assumed that the market went away, but it didn't. And it persisted for the last 20 years, but just at a much smaller place. And then at some point, everyone gets interested in it again. And that's where we're at today, where my whole generation is all coming back into it and starting that regrowth of the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not a collector. My dad was a collector, and so I watched him stressed out he was a collector, like guns, snuff balls, anything, right? Because he had money, he was first generation money, and so I was the opposite. I'm like, fuck, man, I saw my dad go nuts collecting shit and where everything was. And so I was the opposite kid. I was like, I'm going to live modern, like 3 chairs and white walls, and no one can accuse anybody of stealing anything. And no inventory. I was doing inventory. I'm 11 years old. I'm doing my dad's inventory of painting. So obviously you get into this, but was the tipping point for cars? So when I met Rally Road, I'm like, okay, I know this is genius, but I'm not a collector, but I'll invest and just, you know, fractional made sense to me because I just didn't want to hold stuff, right? So maybe I got lucky because I am that weird use case that I think people are going. It's like, I don't need to own this stuff or hang it on my wall because my dad did that. As long as I know it's safe and, you know, it's not sitting in cash and it's not a SPAC or crypto, I'll do it. So why would it be different this time? What do you think is different this time?
Well, so first of all, you know, cards have crossed over from being a collectible, from being a memorabilia into now being a true asset and a true investable asset. And that doesn't mean that things that you collect aren't valuable. And I don't know much about snuff boxes, but I'm going to guess that when your father collected them, they were valuable.
Jade snuff boxes, you know, well, it wasn't a cool kid, you could tell.
Yeah, I actually have no idea what a snuff box is. I assume it has something to do with smoking, but
it was something back in the Chinese did, you know, with like
right. It was like a different way to get nicotine in your body, right?
Yeah.
I've never taken a puff of a cigarette, actually. But cards. Yeah. So what happened was in the late 90s, grading companies emerged where you would send your card off to these grading companies and they will authenticate it and send it back to you in a tamper-proof case that'll say, you know, this is a 10 or this is a 9. It gives you a grade. And that is what standardized cards and made them more liquid, more transferable. Because before, if I was going to sell you a card, you would have to look at it and you'd have to say, well, you know, it's this condition, and we'd argue over the condition, and you'd have to on your own determine if it's real. But now it's standardized, and now a LeBron James, you know, rookie card and a PSA 10, like that's a share of IBM stock, right? It's liquid, it's transferable, and once enough of the market got graded, now the stage was set for demand to come back in and to grow on top of that. And that's what's been going on for the past 2 years is as my entire generation is now rediscovering cards because either we're at the point where we have money where we can go buy that Michael Jordan rookie we couldn't afford when we were 10, or our kids are getting into cards and you start to rediscovering that way. But like, once you realize that spending $20,000 on a Michael Jordan rookie is not the same thing as spending $20,000 on an autographed Michael Jordan jersey, right? That is a collectible. It is memorabilia. It's valuable and it's probably going to be worth more tomorrow, but it's not liquid. It's not standard. There's no market for it. Like, you know,
got it.
A card is an asset. So now buying a $20,000 card is not, instead of buying a jersey, it's instead of buying a Vanguard mutual fund or a share of Nike stock or whatever it is. And so now it's an asset, it's an investment. Well, now I can buy more of them, and it's just a question of, like, where do I want to move my investments? Do I want to have them in stocks and bonds and startups and whatever?
And eventually, I'm already seeing companies, like I was reading a deck about a company that just will help you borrow against those already.
Yeah. Well, but now you have the full spectrum of it, right? You have the fractional ownership companies that are going after that part. And that's just the flip side of
that. Helps you, right? It's all charisma.
Yeah.
It's all going to help you.
Absolutely, right? What's happened is the collectors are all coming back into the market. Mm-hmm. And now the businesses, the money and everything else is falling because there's enough collectors coming in. But the key is that up until 2 years ago, the number of cards that were printed was so small because the industry had been so small. So now these millions of people are coming back in the industry, going up against such a small supply base, right? So here's a best example. So LeBron's kind of most notable rookie is a card called the 2003 Topps Chrome. Mm-hmm. In the highest condition, in a PSA 10, there are 2017 of that card that exist in the entire world.
Guaranteed, kind of like,
yes,
kind of like Satoshi.
Kind of Satoshi?
Satoshi, the Bitcoin guy. There's only a certain amount of them. There's only a certain amount.
Yeah, well, that guy, we don't even know who that guy is, right? You're going to believe that guy? At least I know where PSA is. Yeah. I don't invest in Bitcoin. But PSA, I know where they live. And, you know, all the grading card companies publish all of their grading population reports. So, you know, there's 2017 LeBron 10s. There's, I don't know, whatever the number is, 7,009s, whatever. And that level of transparency is what created the structure of the market to enable it. So there's only 2,000 of this card that exist. A year ago, it was like between $1,000 to $2,000. Today, that card is a $15,000 card because of people coming into the market. But even still, like, that card should be $500,000 in 5 years, right? Millions of people are going to want to own a LeBron rookie, and there's 2,000 that exist. Like, that's a rounding error. And it's the same way across the board. Kobe's like corollary card, there's 800 of. Jordan's, there's 300 of.
How do you decide the corollary, and then how do the suppliers not fuck this up now they have? Like, I'm excited because I have 1987 Topps gum. I saved the gum. So how do I get that graded? Or I'm going to just play a prank on somebody and make them chew that.
Why don't you and I just start a gum grading company? I'm sure that'll work out really well.
So hang on. So the suppliers are going to screw this up because they do. So your problem is Topps and Don Ross and all these people are going to get greedy, but that only wrecks the current supply. So it's like wine. They'll overproduce for a year, and
they can't go back and reprint the cards from 2003, et cetera, right? Right? No. And the other thing is they've also learned their lesson from the crash of the 90s. And understanding that, and now the market is stratified very well, so that in 1986, Michael Jordan's rookie year, there was one basketball company, Fleer. They made one set, that Fleer set, right? This past year, Panini, which makes basketball cards, there were probably 50 different basketball card sets that they made, and completely stratified from, you could walk into Target and an 8-year-old kid can buy a pack for $1. And the Zion Williamson that he could possibly get in that pack is worth maybe $20. And there are packs that sell for $10,000 a pack that Panini puts out. But the Zion that you might pull out of that is worth $500,000 and everything in between. So they've done a really good job of making more product because they want to sell as much as they can sell, but making it so that, their scarcity still exists where it needs to be so that those cards can still be valuable, right? And that's where we're at. Like, we're at a place where the manufacturers understand the supply and demand dynamics. Millions of people are coming into it. So the cards to date it's gold. It's literally a gold rush for who can acquire the most of them.
Yeah, people are like T-Boone Pickett. People are trying to corner the market, and there's also a few cards to corner, right? It's not like I was hearing the story about the kid who had a shot. I don't know, it was Miami or Boston. His cards went to like $3,000 or to 10 grand overnight. I'm like, you can't. That's how people get killed. That's like penny stocks. You gotta.
Yeah, and I mean there is some of that, right? And we've seen over the last 2 years, big spikes in the market, and then there's a small correction. It'll come down, and it levels up each time. And you go that because when that happens, you have so many people that their cost basis is still down there or low. But it's been a really interesting thing to watch over the last 2 years, and I'm 100% in. I mean, I left StockX to create businesses in the trading card space. Like,
yeah,
I think
I'm excited to kind of learn and get involved. And so outside of trading cards, is there anything that people, and so the key, outside of trading cards, is there any collectibles that have that kind of potential or no?
Well, just to be clear, within cards, it's not just sports, right? So Pokémon has been having a massive resurgence, and you have these other gaming companies. Just last week, Logan Paul had bought a $200,000 box of Pokémon cards and open it, and then the rapper Logic bought like a $225,000 Pokemon single card, right? And like it's a Charizard, rookie basically. And as crazy as that sounds, like that Charizard is probably $1 million card in a year. Like it just like there's again supply and demand. There's so few that exist. Pokemon is such a big deal. Coming up on the 25th anniversary, more and more people coming back. Same thing. So yeah, so it's not just sports cards.
But does that interest you, or do you just have to be sports related?
Personally, I'm way more interested in the sports side because I was about 10 years too old for the Pokemon generation. But from a business side, yeah, it's all interesting.
What's the dream card right now today?
It used to always be the Honus Wagner,
Yeah.
right, and 52 Topps Mickey Mantle is still the iconic card. I don't know.
I was going to give you a gift. I said, listen, thanks for coming on my Zoom. And what would you
what card you go buy me?
And it's not just money. It's like appreciate, like you're stealing it from me. Like, what's the one that you would grab?
Yeah, honestly, there's a half a dozen people. It's exactly who you think it is. LeBron, Kobe, Jordan. But like the Jordan 86 Fleer is really the card, right?
Is
like
Gretzky card worth anything? Is that Gretzky?
Oh yeah.
Card?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Dude, hockey is certainly number 4 amongst the sports in terms of overall. But Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby,
really
Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gretzky, the Gretzky rookie, and particularly in OPG, which was the Canadian version, is worth a lot. But like the Jordan 86 Fleer, like the Jordan rookie, that's kind of like our generation's seminal card. And by the way, that's our generation's art, right? Like that's the other crossover part of this. Like I'd much rather have a Jordan rookie than a Warhol or something, and to show people.
How would you display that? How would you show people that you own that, or do you not? Is there a way that
some people do
display something but how do you display something so small in a way that it explains that it's a Picasso?
Yeah, I mean it is not as easy for that way, but people have them on shelves or something like that,
And and so you're going to invest in companies. I mean, there's so much infrastructure around this, a lot of financial infrastructure that has to get built, and a lot of relationships that you got to build trustworthy. So it's really kind of an intimate industry still so far. Yeah.
It is still very small, and is very. It's gonna grow a lot. More and more people every day are kind of rediscovering it from the hobby side and the investment side. So it's good to see people coming. The similarities between cards right now and sneakers in 2012 is identical. The same way that there were, it starts with the hobbyists, the people that love the product, and then the business follows behind it, and technology and investors and all that. And that's great. And like we see where the sneaker industry has gone and what it looks like. StockX is literally bigger today than what we thought the entire resale sneaker market was when we started the business in 2015.
What is the sites that, so I'm into it, but I'm not into it, meaning, I don't want to bug you, but we're friends and I can invest with you, but like where would I start? Is there a couple sites that I just...
eBay is still, by far the largest marketplace. And unlike sneakers where StockX was able to take that business relatively quickly, I think it'll be a while before anyone overthrows eBay from a card standpoint.
So that's going to help eBay stock. So they're actually a play on this industry.
Yeah.
Okay. And then stock's doing well, but I mean, is it big enough industry to drive it? And then there's CLCT, which is kind of like a Moody's in a way.
Well, they own PSA, which is the largest grading company.
Yeah.
Right. They also grade coins and autographs and a couple other things, but they're the only public company, and they're trading at some like crazy multiple right now.
But it's still like a tiny company. It's under $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah. But the reason that they're trading that much is like that is just pure supply and demand, right? Yeah. It's the only public company in the space you put money into.
And I'm big, I can buy eBay or I can go pure and buy CLCT, and it's just a supply demand thing. Like people go, and that's
1,000%.
That's what you think will happen to certain cards.
Yeah.
Okay, and is there a newsletter? Is someone who's great that I can just read weekly or daily and sign up for somebody? Is there like a Substacker, or is there any way to learn?
Not really. I mean, they're all those parts of the industry are getting built up. There will be some, right now
is there a media play around this potential that we can invest in? Is there something?
I think there will be. It'd be interesting to see who wins that. So if you remember, there's a company called Beckett, which made the price guide back in the day. And it was the paper price guide, and they literally still print the price guide, which as you might imagine is outdated the second they print it, but they still do print it. And Beckett still has the best and most iconic brand in the hobby, but haven't really innovated very much when you look at, their site and what they've built. But they have, from a media standpoint, like they're still the brand. And I'm gonna, imagine that someone is gonna win that space, someone new. But there's definitely a lot of people every day. There's new podcasts and, new content coming out around it. But yeah.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate your time. What a great story. What a great story.
This is the fun part, man. To move to the there are only two things that I cared about when I was 10: sneakers and baseball cards. And now I get to do the other one. Like, it's crazy.
Good for you. That's the American dream. Be an expert at one thing. And are your kids into this or no?
So my daughter's 8, my son is 5. My son could care less, but my daughter's actually starting in. She likes opening packs. I've been letting her open packs like from cards from
There's
the 90s.
There's nothing like opening a pack.
Right.
I'm doing it again, and I'm just like that feeling. It's like a song. Like you just open a pack and you just go, dude, I did that when I was 5.
It's amazing. My daughter loves opening packs. She has no idea. I literally give her packs of 1991 Upper Deck basketball to open. So she's pulling out like Mike Jaminski. She has no idea. I mean, most people don't know who these people are, right?
Jaminski is worth less than a Lindzon.
Yes, for sure.
So is opening them? So you have the boxes you're opening. Does that not wreck it, or it must be fun opening a 1991 because there's got to be a mystery that could be a card in there that's worth.
Yeah, exactly. Opening packs is the best. It's straight gambling. It's straight gambling. You go to buy a box of cards. It is straight gambling. And that's why the trading card companies have really innovated well in how they create the products. Because what they do is they have the base cards, but then they'll have different what they call parallels. So let's say all the cards are white. You might get you open the pack and you get a Zion Williamson, and it's the normal one and it's white. That card might be worth $20. There's a red version of that Zion that is numbered to 200, and there's only 200 of that one. There's a blue version that's numbered to 100. There's an orange version that's numbered to 50. There's a gold version numbered to 10. So if you pull the gold version of Zion that's numbered to 10, well, whereas that white one might be worth $20, that gold one might be worth $4,000, right? So
Willy
like
Wonka.
That level of
it's like Willy Wonka.
It is absolutely lottery ticket. It is gambling. It is hunt and that adds to the excitement of opening packs and everything else. And that's a huge part of supercharging the hobby.
All right. Well, my brain is packed. Can't believe it.
Go buy some packs of cards. Let's go buy some old packs of hockey cards.
We'll open them on my next show with you. Well, all the best. It was really fun to chat with you. How do people find you?
I should give my address when people just come to my house.
It's on Twitter, I guess, is the best place.
I used to tell people to go to StockX. You should still support StockX. But yeah, I mean, I'm Josh Luber on Instagram. So.
All right, everybody, that was it. I mean, you could not find a better spokesperson for investing for profit and joy, right? You can make money. You can have a joyous life. It's not easy. But it is the goal. I think it's the goal of the whole thing is to do what you love. All right, my man. Thank you, Josh. And,
thank you very much.
See you soon, my man.
See ya.
Cheers.